Bob, thanks so much for joining us today, Bob. I had a big stutter there. My internet is being slow, so if I start going robotic, tell me, and we'll find another place to do this. But I really appreciate you jumping on. For everybody watching, Bob McNulty is like the OG, the grandfather of e-commerce. Started way back in the day. Sorry to say grandfather, but the young grandfather of e-commerce, the pioneer. There we go, the pioneer of e-commerce. And I've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with Bob. He's a personal mentor in my life, and so I was thrilled that you accepted to jump on here and share a lot of the knowledge and the wisdom that you've gained over the years with this whole new generation of online marketers that are really just filling the space and taking it now forward into the next generation where retail happens online more so than offline. But before we talk about that, can you tell us about your story, how you got involved in e-commerce and everything that's happened up till now?
Yeah, okay. Hey, thanks, Trevor. I appreciate you inviting me on this and love to share some of the information I have. As you know, I really get into retail. It's my passion, so I do a lot of research. I'm a student of the game. But fundamentally, I've been in retail 40 years now. Started out in a retail store like most people. They start in retail and saw a great opportunity, moved up with a number of companies, started out on the sales floor, ended up, over about a 5-year period through 2 different companies. I ended up running about a $200 million business by the time I was 27. And then I went out on my own, became an entrepreneur, and just have done so much in retail. Watching the change over the last 40 years, phenomenal. And what we're about ready to do, when I say we, talking about e-commerce itself and where is it going, is probably at the most exciting time that's been around in e-commerce is now. It's morphed so much over the last 5 years and over the next 5 years. You won't even notice it from the standpoint of what it looked like 5 years over a 10-year period. But fundamentally, I've been in retail, like I said, all my life. I've done a lot of startups. I built a company called Home Club that I started back in the early 80s, took the company public, built it to $1 billion revenue business. We had 38 stores. They're like Home Depot type stores. We were in 7 states, had about 15,000 employees when I took the company public. And then in 1988, I had an opportunity to make an investment in a company that was in the internet space, but I didn't really understand it. I was kind of dumb and happy at the time. And they showed me this new product. They called the World Wide Web, what they were doing, and they were looking for a financing. And I just saw it as something different than what they were doing with it. They were playing games on it in local taverns and what have you. And so they asked me for an investment. I wrote them a check for $500,000, and I got their rights for their technology for shopping. This is 1988.
Wow.
The company went upside down probably about 2 years later, lost some money, but I really got an education, what was then going to be the internet. And then in 95, 96, I started really taking a hard look at the internet, thinking about how could you sell products online. So there's a lot of things that come to play. You can be a in-store or in-stock warehouse, much like an Amazon, a true distribution center, pack out millions of items. Or you can go the other route, which is working with your supply chain, meaning your wholesalers, manufacturers directly, and ship direct from them, just like an Amazon store, except you don't ever own the inventory. So 96, we started building a company called shopping.com. It was very successful. We were the first retailer online to use multiple SKUs, meaning millions of SKUs. We put it up way before Amazon. We were not only selling books, but computers and home improvement products, every major category under the sun. We had about 25 major categories, about 2 million SKUs that we hooked into our system. We built our own platform. There was nothing like it at the time. Spent a year in development, and that went pretty well. Actually, when we really fired up the business, you're always holding your breath to make sure everything works, and actually the system really worked the way it was supposed to. However, a lot of people at that time still weren't online. A lot of companies weren't online. So we had to do a lot of, believe it or not, faxing back and forth information, things like that. But we escalated our business over a 12-month period to about $300 million annualized in revenues the first year. So the fourth quarter of the first year, we ended up doing a little over 50-something million of revenues, and it was just exponentially growing at 10, 15% a month.
What people really don't realize, though, is that like now you jump online, it's easy. A couple pushes of a button, you have a store up and running. You've got whizzes that have written out all the code to accept credit card payments and other payments. When you started, there was none of that. Like that did not exist. There was no software as a service, and banks didn't interface with the internet, correct?
Correct. There was zero technology to do what we wanted to do. And the way we looked at the business, you got to remember I come from retail. So having been in the home improvement business most of my career in retail, really took a hard look at, the categories within the store. And when you start thinking through the internet and what it does from an operational standpoint, how you can leverage your costs down, that was the first thing we saw and said, wow, this is really going to be powerful. But if you're just going to sell online books or online home improvement or online, whatever it might be, a category, you're going to get slaughtered over time because the margins are going to get compressed. Operating efficiencies is really the name of the game. A low-cost provider wins traditionally in business, as long as you run your business as a real business and you service your customer. So when we looked at that, and I said, wow, what maybe we need to do is look at every killer category, because in those days, killer categories were the big thing. Went from big box to killer categories or niche stores. So that's when we started putting all of this together to come up with 2 million SKUs. We had, believe it or not, we probably had over 1,400 suppliers at the time.
Wow.
With our business. Everybody at that time wasn't electronically based. And a lot of people never believed in the internet. When I was going around telling people about the company in those days, they go like, what's the internet? Or what do you mean email? How's that work? And then people would laugh at you and say, you're nuts. That's never going to fly. People want to go into a store. And I'm going like, I get they want to go to a store, but if you can provide that product on a timely basis and have real value for that consumer, they're going to shop with you no matter what. And, it's funny. I was doing something the other day, and one of those, I was on the internet and somebody was playing the old, when you hear the dial-up.
Yeah, yeah.
The dial-up came up, and I was just cracking up because the world has changed so fast in 20 years, the technology advancements. And what's going to happen, they're exponentially going to grow. They're not going to slow down. They're exponentially growing. And that means a huge opportunity in the internet space again. And that's why I'm back in the game again. I kind of took some time off trying to see what was going on, what's really happening. And it's got opportunity for individuals, influencers, brick and mortar. The world isn't going to stop because there's all this flux in the business models out there. It's just going to get there faster. That's all.
So what did that look like when you had to actually create the entire platform? What was that process? There's a lot of people watching who are developers or they're entrepreneurs that aren't necessarily in e-commerce and they're used to traditional business.
Yeah. I still have the original business plan I wrote on a stack of napkins. And then I took those stack of napkins because I was trying to piece the business out. So the best way for me to do that was write it on napkins.
Yeah.
So I wrote that out on I don't know, probably 50 or 60 napkins just to get the base in my head, because you're talking about a whole different world from brick and mortar to online, and nobody even really knew what online was at the time. So what happened was, there was no technology. So I had a group of developers. Fortunately, I had a guy that I worked with over the years who really knew a lot more about the internet than I knew he knew. And then, so I cobbled together 5 or 6 developers and him, and sat in a conference room, and we didn't have whiteboards in those days. We had white butcher block paper. So we covered the walls in butcher block paper, and then we got marking pens out, and we probably spent a week in there just mining out the process. And the process is still the same. It hasn't changed. It's how do you take a single item and take it through a supply chain from the point of acquisition all the way to the consumer. And that's what we wrote on the butcher block paper, was that process. We just took one item, walked it all the way through the system, then looked at all the variables, of course, because email was coming along. You did have electronic, where you could, send out orders electronically. That was just coming, not online, but through regular legacy systems. So we integrated, and faxing. So we integrated all those into our system. So we knew if we had a vendor that only took a fax, then it would hit the fax and send that to them. If it was electronic, we would send a EDI transmission over, ping them. They would ping us back if they had the product in inventory. And one of the other things we were confronted with was trying to be around 93, 94% in stock at all times by not having to warehouse anything. So that's when we developed the system. So we had a primary product, a secondary product, and a tertiary product. So the same product, but 3 different sources. So let's say we sent out a ping to a vendor and they came back and said they didn't have it in stock. We don't want to go in there by hand and try to move all this stuff around. So we set the system up. It would go and find the secondary source and ping them. If that wasn't in, they'd go to the third source. If the third source didn't have it, then we're out of luck. But pretty much we would run about 93, 94% shipping. Everything worked pretty spectacularly, actually. These guys were a great group of developers. We were using servers. We must have had, I don't know, 50 or 60 compact servers at the time, all in series to handle the ramp up. But yeah, it's totally different now. I mean, what took us a year to build and develop, you can literally do that in 5 minutes now by hooking into Shopify or somebody's SaaS platform or whatever. So you can be in business fairly quick, fairly cheap. So the game's changing rapidly, but the process is still the same. Retail is still retail, whether it's on the corner of Main Street or, on the internet. It's still the same. It's about what are the propositions that you're offering your consumer, what are the products, the brands, the pricing, the delivery, all of those things come to play, which are important in any retail business.
So one of the things that has always struck me, because I talk with a lot of people who are just jumping online right now, and what they're passionate about is typically either making money or becoming an influencer in the space. You're one of the few people that has said that you're passionate about retail itself. And in my experience, anyone who I've ever talked to, when I had my solar company, the guys who were passionate about solar itself, my security company, the same thing, the guys who are actually passionate about the industry, they had the success. So what does that mean when you say that you're passionate about retail, and why is it critical to attach your passion to an actual industry instead of the what occurs after you achieve success?
Well, that's a great question. And I'll circle back to what you were telling me maybe a month or two ago, talking about certain individuals that want to get in the e-commerce business and they think they're going to get rich overnight. That's not happening. When I used to talk and do a lot of speeches on different campuses around the United States, I'd talk about there's no substitute for hard work. Retail's about hard work. It's about discipline. It's about paying attention to detail. There is no silver bullet. You have to execute 100 disciplines. But the game is changing every day. And I think that's the thing that just drove my passion with it, because it keeps your mind really keen. I mean, I'm 71 now, and I'm in the game just like you are every day. And I love it because it keeps my brain active. It gets creative. It's where's the marketplace going? I called up a friend of mine yesterday who just retired. He was a senior executive at Sam's Club. And I said, what are you doing? He says, man, I hate it. I hate it. He says, I just retired and I can't stand it. And I said, well, go get a job at Walmart. Be a door. So but if you keep your mind active, it doesn't matter how old you are. And I see a lot of people don't understand right now, the current state of e-commerce is going to change so radically because of people like yourself that are doing it and teaching it. And the ones that want to be taught, if they listen to it and develop a passion for it, there's millions of dollars to be made if people want to do it. The thing is, people have to get committed to something if they're going to be in the game. So if they're going to get committed to e-commerce, then they have to know what they're in for. They have to know it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of dedication. But money is the secondary issue to me at the end game. Because if you do all the right things first, the money will come. It's not about, oh, I'm going to go in here and make $1 million next week or 10 million or 100 million. It's about, what am I building for the long term? How am I changing processes, people's minds, how they think? They don't even realize, the general public doesn't realize what's taking place today in retail across America and around the world for that matter. So to me, it's if you can wake up every morning with a purpose, a passion, you're so far ahead of the game than just waking up in the morning and go like, what am I going to do today? Go play golf because I retired, or somebody that's in their mid 40s and had a relatively amount of success, and what are they going to do? Everybody goes to try to do something else other than what their skill set is. Most will gravitate back to their skill set because that's where they're comfortable. I got in retail really early as a kid. My first job was a carryout at 14, 15 years old. And I loved it because it was a fast paced, it's personable type of business. You're dealing with consumers all the time. And you don't have to be really super bright. What you have to do is listen well. If you listen to the customer, listen to people around you, you will get an education. If you listen to the right people. When we're doing coaching, I don't know anything about coding. I just know that if you have the best whiz-bang computer system, you're probably going to win. So when we did Home Club, we were on the leading edge of technology in '83 with that. We had point of sale in the store center warehouse, 120,000 square feet. No pricing, from the standpoint of changing prices on the product or anything. Everything was point of sale. It was so far ahead of its time. But it gave us a leg up that we put up almost 4 million square feet of retail space in 3 years from scratch.
Wow. Because
of technology. So you use technology wisely to grow your business. You don't use it foolishly. Like with some people, and one of the things you have to do when you're working with programmers, you have to have, it's like going down a mountain on a horse. If you go down a mountain on a horse, you have to let the horse, you have to give it its head, they call it. So you let the reins go pretty much, right? So same here, but there are times that you have to be careful because the horse will stumble, so you got to pull them back. Same thing with programmers. They'll take you off on a road you might not want to go, so you have to be pretty cognizant of what's going on.
So you came in and you look at it, you've got a very strategic mind. Did you have a dad that was an entrepreneur or a grandpa that was an entrepreneur? How did you go from your youth to building out Home Club way ahead of its time, literally seeing e-commerce before e-commerce was a thing? It wasn't out there. Like, you built this industry. What do you attribute that to?
My dad was from Scotland, and he was a very, very smart guy, but he was a blue collar worker, but always very entrepreneurial in his own mind. And when I was 15 or 16, we moved to Northern California, and he opened a tavern and a fish and tackle store. And my mom, our family is Scottish Italian, so you get a lot of work ethic. You worked in the family, and you respected the work. So I think that's what really gave me the foundation to work hard. And then I always had jobs. I was mowing lawns. I was delivering newspapers. I was always busy. In fact, I had a nickname when I was a kid on our street from different parents around. They used to call me Rapid Robert because all I ever did was run. That's funny.
So you were talking about killer categories a little bit ago, and we call that now like niching down. Because you said that became a trend and allowed you to excel in retail. How do we use that now? How did you use it then, and how does that correlate with our day and age today?
Well, it correlates right down to what's happening in retail in America today and where the internet's going and the different kinds of products. You have to think about the internet today. People equate the internet, Amazon, they got everything, which they do. And then there's all these niches out there, the different kinds of things. So a niche could be one-off products. You bang them out every 2 or 3 days, new products, nice margins. You have a super following of people. You're an influencer and you sell millions of dollars worth of product. That's one strategy. You could have another strategy that focuses in on niche type categories, whether it's linens or shoes or sporting goods or outdoor beauty, health and fitness products. health and supplement products. So those niches all come to play. I think what you have to take a look at, which is really kind of important, Trevor, what's happening today in retail, and you know, I've had some of these conversations, where the internet today, people think the internet is blowing up the brick and mortar business. And that's a fallacy. Okay, and why I say that's a fallacy, they in part are helping it blow it up, but the reality is what really happened historically. And I think you have to keep it in context of what happened in retail before the internet came along. And that'll lead up to where the end game is today. So we'll just go back to the 80s. So, you know, you had big box retailing came along. I was part of that. Then you had the killer stores come along, and then you had fashion that was going crazy. So from the 80s and 90s and early 2000, you had massive growth in physical brick and mortar stores and footprints. And I could see it back in the late 80s. They were going to overstore themselves and cannibalize themselves. So retail's always built on comp store increases every year. So if you don't have a comp store increase, you're going backwards. So what happens when you start cannibalizing your marketplace, you start slowing your growth down, which isn't good. And everybody worries about competition. Well, if that guy's, you know, if I'm not there, that other guy's going to be there to take that market. Well, that might be true, but there's also what I always call an intelligent loss of sales. You know, sometimes you just don't need to go there for market share. So what happened was, so now roll forward to where we are today with this massive growth in brick and mortar space. And to keep it in perspective, the United States per capita has twice the square footage of retail space in almost any country in the world.
Wow.
Twice per capita. So you can see what happens. They've overstored. So you go through downturns in 2000 and change. They come out of that, then you get the downturn in 2008 and 9, the bubble. So all these stores can't support that business out there. So you have a slowdown. So what happens? They start slowly. It's a slow deterioration. It's like death with 1,000 cuts. And what's happened now with the internet coming on like a raging bull, that's impacted and also helped slow down that business. So for example, guys like Kmart and Sears, I'll tell you right now, they're not going to be around in 24 months. There's no way that they can survive at all. So what's happening, so all these store closures are happening. There's tens of thousands of stores. They're projecting 25% of the retail space of malls will be closing over the next 5 years. So what does that really mean? Well, what that really means, if you look at the number, and I think there's 13 billion square feet or 14 billion square feet of retail space out there in malls, and this is the B's and the C's and the D's are going to get hammered. So they're going to close down. So that's going to be 3-4 billion square feet of retail space. It's going to close. So where is that going to go? That's over $1 trillion worth of business. So where is that business going to go? It's going to go probably a good portion of it's going to go online now. So therein lies the opportunity for influencers, people that want to get online, start a small business. They can do it relatively cheap today. Can you just think about this in the grandiose scheme of things? Think about this. 5 years from now, you got Amazon, you'll have Walmart and Jet. All of those players will be big and strong and all this stuff. But what if you had 4 or 5 million individual people, maybe 10 million individual people selling products online and competing with the big guys, because you can compete. It just depends on what margin, what level you want to compete at. You could be a thorn in their side. I mean, it's really revolutionary. And then there's other component parts. When you really analyze, you know, Amazon's business, and they're really, you know, they have so many streams of income, whether it's just selling their regular products out of their storefront, or if they're selling off of their, you know, marketplace. Their marketplace is about 45% of the overall revenues. And then if you look at on the other side, their cloud, I mean, that's probably, you know, $3 billion a year of revenues, you know, so it represents 3% of their business, but it's probably $1 billion worth of profits. So you see all these things going on, and if you want to play in the game, you see that market evolving. But I see it as a great opportunity for individuals that want to get in the game. and be an entrepreneur, be a retailer. If you want to make, $10, $15, $20,000 a year as extra income for yourself, or your family, or if you want to make, $100,000 a year for yourself, it's all there for the choosing. It just depends what you want to do. So if you look at your business model or our business model or anybody that's out there, what is the thing? And you said it best once in a webinar that you were doing. And I thought it was really profound at the time, and it still is. It's you have to become a marketer. If you really want today, you have to learn how to market. Let other people do the technology platform. Let other people do the supply chain. If you become a superior marketer, there's no limit to how much money you can make. And strategically think about that, how you reinvest back into that marketplace to sell more product. So those are the things you need to think about, I think, as a young entrepreneur that's coming up. How do they fit? Where do they go to find the product? What platform should I get on? But don't overthink it. Think about how to be the best marketer on the planet.
Yeah, that's excellent, Bob. So I'm just sitting here at Drug Drop. So you see this, you take a few years off and you just live a great lifestyle, and then you see the opportunity again and you've decided to jump back in. So what specifically?
Yeah, both feet.
Yeah, both feet. So what specifically have you jumped back into? Because we're going to have a lot of people here who are just marketers. We're going to have people who are developers.
Right.
We're all curious. Do you have a small Shopify shop, or what is your opportunity that you're going after, and how can everybody who's watching this benefit from your experience?
Sure. So if you look at the marketplace today, with Shopify, which is a phenomenal company, they provide a technology platform for an individual. If you have some products or whatever you want to do, you want to be an online retailer, you can jump on and $79 a month to whatever, up to $300-400 a month or $500 a month. It depends how much technology you want. You can do a SaaS platform from there. That's the easiest part there is. The hardest part in the whole thing is you're asking somebody with inexperience the whole process of supply chain. And I don't care if it's your own products, because you still have to pick, pack, and ship. If you're going to do it yourself and ship those products, you may have a full-time job somewhere else. You get disillusioned, whatever. All these things come to play. So when I started looking at the marketplace, I actually started reading a lot of research about BigCommerce, Shopify, other players. And the one thing they had in common was the supply chain was difficult for people if you read through their information. So thinking about that, and then thinking about the killer categories or the niche stores, how do they play? So if you're, for example, let's say you have a health and fitness club. Okay, there's thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them around the United States, just individual mom and pops own their own fitness club. And they want to have an online presence. A lot of times they'll just have a single web page. Here's my store location or my shop's location. Here's my pricing, blah, blah, blah. But they have no e-commerce presence. But they have customers. Their customers are their people that are going to their gym and working out. Just like a beautician or a salon, a beauty supply or beauty salon owner or nail salon owners. They have customers, but they haven't been able to monetize it. So you take the SaaS platform and we marry products into our own SaaS platform. So we do all the heavy lifting. So we do the supply chain. So in our beauty store, we carry over 30,000 SKUs, 700-800 brands. We ship worldwide. We're competitively priced with Amazon. So somebody that has, a salon owner that may have 10 or 15 individuals working in their salon, or a beautician who may have 400 or 500 clients, they're already an influencer already, okay? Or a blogger that's an influencer on beauty, but has no way to monetize. So they could have their own store. Instead of sending somebody to Sephora or Amazon, they could have their own store branded with themselves, and they make all the profits out of the store. We're a SaaS provider, so we just charge a monthly subscription fee. So I see that model as being very viable over time. We're just now in the phase of launching, I think, and you kept up with what we're doing. But I think probably in the next 6, 7, 8 months, we'll have 40, 50,000 storefronts up, whether they're health, organic foods, health, supplements, beauty supplies, pets, books, consumer electronics. because we're going to be hitting them all. We have 4 of them up now, and we're probably going to add another 10 or 15 niche stores to our product mix. And then we're going to be doing some other interesting things within that, giving more people more selection of product categories to carry if they like. So we think that that's where the business is going. And it's only a piece of the business out there in the general terms of the internet, but it's clearly got a huge upside. So by a subscription-based business, it allows us not to compete in the arena itself of retail margins and pricing. We don't make any money on the product side, so we can push all that profit over to a store owner. So it makes it relatively simple. We make our money on the SaaS platform. That's how we work.
Yeah, so just everybody listening, this is, when you were first explaining the concept of this company to me many months ago, the value was abundantly clear, because as I work with people and as I've been in e-commerce myself, the hurdle, the obstacle, once you're a successful marketer and you're driving traffic and you're getting attention, the obstacle is the back end, the fulfillment, actually delivering. So what this allows you to do is you do what you do best as an online marketer, as a small business entrepreneur or big business, and then you let them do the rest. And that's where the beauty is. You know, half of my day the last few months has been eaten up dealing with warehouse and importing issues. And now that now that in China, they just had over 1,000 factories shut down in Shenzhen because they weren't licensed. And so for me, that's a huge issue. Like my suppliers are already telling me that my next shipments are going to be $10 more expensive per unit. And so none of that, I tend to think sometimes that most people, 99% of people, would be far better off not dealing with every hat in the business, but just focusing on what they're good at. And so that's why iBuyRight is the platform for the people, as opposed to just a software platform. And then you deal with everything. Here's Shopify, put all your stuff in, deal with everything, deal with your own merchant accounts and everything. Like iBuyRight, you plug in, you drive traffic, and you're set.
Exactly. It's if you want to take it back, it's like Ford and Cadillac. You know, Ford's for the masses, Cadillac's for the upper end. So, you know, Shopify, BigCommerce, they're really for the person that really wants to get involved and do it themselves and do all the sourcing. People don't realize the complexity of sourcing. It's not that easy, and there's a lot of pitfalls in it. So if we could take that away from the person that wants to be in the space, the whole supply chain, the pricing model, the shipping, pick, pack, and ship, all of those key elements, and run the business for them, and all they have to worry about, they don't have to worry about tracking shipments or any of that stuff. We do all that. That's part of our subscription fee monthly, and all they do is worry about marketing. They're going to see some huge results, particularly if they're an influencer already, if they have friends, customers, people that follow them in the thousands, some in the hundreds of thousands. So it's a perfect business model for them. And I believe, that it's going to have a lot of traction because e-commerce is changing so much right now. I mean, when you look at e-commerce wars that are going to take place in the future, not what's happened right now, it's going to be really interesting to see where this goes, because at the end of the day, it's kind of interesting. If you look at industries in the retail sector, it always goes through these, winding roads where you'll have 6, 7, 8, 10 different kinds of business, similar kinds of players in the business, but then it always whittles down to 2. It's kind of crazy. So if you look at the office products business, fundamentally you had Office Depot, Staples, and Office Max. I think Depot and Max merged, so you got Staples by themselves. So now you really basically have 2 players. Look at the home improvement business. You have Home Depot and Lowe's. They're the basic big players in the country. I mean, you have some regional players like Menards. But so if you really look at that, the market is so vast in commerce in the United States and in the world. It's a monster. Retailing around the world, e-commerce and retailing is $22 trillion a year. So when you look at that, in the United States is 4.5 trillion. E-commerce is probably 12% of that number right now, somewhere in that range. But now you're going to have $1 trillion coming offline over the next 5 years. So that's going to bolster internet growth. But when you look at what's going to happen with Amazon, because you really have to pay attention to what these guys are doing at Walmart and Jet. And y'all, everybody it's like this great fight that's going to happen tomorrow night in Las Vegas. You got Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. Who's going to win, right? Everybody wants to know who's going to win, and everybody tells you who's going to win beforehand because everybody's an expert. Nobody really knows. So you have to go back to kind of the fundamentals in retail. And when I look at Amazon, what they're doing, they just, they're allowed to move forward to close the deal with Whole Foods. The reason they went after Whole Foods, they needed a footprint for their, same day fresh product, that they have. They were having a difficult time breaking into the quality fresh produce side of the business. So buying them does a couple things. It gets them in the space quickly, gives them a footprint. But when you look at a Walmart, and believe it or not, Walmart does over $300 billion a year in groceries alone. So if they get their act together with the acquisition of Jet and cross-purpose their produce and groceries into both those platforms, what do you think is going to happen? Because in retail terms, it's a different game when you're in that space, when you're doing same-day delivery, because now logistics becomes important. So when you look at the logistics of what Amazon's created, which is phenomenal, and the use of robots and everything, but Walmart really has the opportunity to really run past these guys over the next 6 or 7 years because their logistical support of physical store locations around the United States. I mean, just supercenters alone, I think they have over 3,200 supercenters alone. Do $300 billion in groceries. I mean, so you look at that, but it's how do you find the players in those niches that can play like what we're doing for small businesses? And there's always a home for them. You just got to figure out how you fit and how you can make money in it and have some fun with it.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. One of the other things, as you were talking, the benefits that I just want to bring up real quick of iBuyRight. I have a pretty robust multiple insurance policies because I'm treated as the manufacturer since my manufacturers are overseas. And that puts me at risk for all kinds of things, like UL listings, from the opportunity to actually have my products cause harm to families, individuals, and homes. That, and most of the people I talk to, they import from overseas, and they have a basic GL policy, not realizing that we as online marketers selling within the continental United States, we are to U.S. law, we're manufacturers. And that gets expensive and that gets scary. And so for those out there that don't want to deal with that want to focus on honing the craft of marketing, this is the perfect platform to do it. And now is the time. In your mind, why should I talk with so many people and they feel like they have lost the opportunity because now Amazon's massive. Now you've got all these other companies out there. Have they lost the opportunity? Like, has the real gold rush already occurred and now it's just, picking up everyone else's?
No, the opportunity is bigger today than it was 10 years ago. Because the industry is morphing again. It's changing. Consumer habits are changing. Social media, social commerce is going to dominate, okay? If you learn how to use social commerce, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and market through those, because you can reach people so quickly, so fast, so cheap, you become a low-cost provider. So those are the things you got to think about. There's always the gold rush. There's the guys, you hear the story, you have the miners, and then you have the guys supplying the picks and shovels and all that stuff and the overalls. So no, the business model is moving so quickly. There's always going to be opportunity. You just got to figure out what part of that do you want to play in. And then when you make that decision, then you go play in that part of it. But no, if you think about it, let's think about this for a second. So Amazon will do probably 150 billion this year or something, some number like that. It depends how you view their business. But if you take its component parts and you really see what they're doing in retail. So, in a pure sense, you know, they're a big piece of the e-commerce market today, maybe 40% of the e-commerce market. That'll get whittled down over time as more players come online, independent small stores, small brick and mortar stores that have influence over customers. If they got their act together, they could still be in business 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. But they've got to get online. They've got to understand how to do it. So that's where we fall in that crack. But I think that opportunity is always here, Trevor, all the time. I just think it's how do you see it? I mean, if I thought the gold rush was over, I wouldn't know what I'm doing. I think the gold rush is starting again.
Awesome, Bob. Hey, so how can people find you and how can they find your platform?
They can just go to ibuyright.com, IBUYRIT.com. There's, you know, a webpage up there, and if you want a store, just click on it, and literally in 5 minutes you could have your store up with your own logo, your own branding, own address, and we do everything else on the product side that you need to do. We change out weekly ads, weekly products. We're always on top of the marketplace as far as pricing. All new items. We're always adding new product categories, new items within those categories that we carry. So it's relatively simple, but I just believe that these young entrepreneurs out there today, young technology people out there today that grew up on a computer can tear this up because they're so used to using computers. They understand social media. And that's the key. Social media is really going to be the big driver in this. So you can compete against anybody in social media if you know how to use it. You don't have to worry about Walmart or Amazon or anybody else that's out there. You can grow your business and be significant. All you need is the right product, right price, the availability to ship those products on a timely basis and hone those market skills.
Awesome. So valuable. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Trevor.
Chat soon, Bob.